Hey guys, Tommy Carrigan here with Tommy Untamed. Thanks for tuning in. We got an awesome guest today. You're going to enjoy it. As always, I never really have any idea what we're talking about, and I've stopped even trying to like plan long-term shows, and I've gotten to a point after 6 years and 1,800 episodes. And it's probably a horrible way to go about this, but I kind of just rely on whatever pops into my subconscious now because my
Yeah.
Rolodex has gotten so large, I can't like tactically maneuver pieces in a meaningful way. So I let the subconscious mind, I assume it's working in my favor. And it's just when somebody's name pops in my head, I'm like, gonna have them back on the show. So, Mr. Johnson, please introduce yourself for the people who maybe don't know you, and then yeah, we'll just jump into it.
Uh, my professional experience, 4 years with the Central Intelligence Agency. Prior to that, I taught at American University. Uh, After 4 years at the CIA, moved to state counterterrorism. I was there for 4 years, and then from starting in end of 93, started 94, set up a consulting business and worked. We formed Berg Associates in 1998, and my consulting consisted of two main efforts: conducting financial investigations overseas, and then scripting terrorism exercises for the Special Operations Forces of the United States military. So quite a, uh, I'm one of those who has a broad experience in a variety of areas as far as, like most people who do government service, whether FBI or CIA, they stay in one sort of cone. They don't branch out. They don't have the experience working as I did with state. And in my job at state, I was interacting regularly with FBI, Department of Transportation, handling transportation security, both aviation and maritime, working with DoD closely. So I got sort of the full picture of how the sausage is made.
Hmm. And I just finished a book, I'm sure you know, but called Project Azorian about the lifting of the sub, it was so good. I actually found another book, and it's called The Raising of K-129, and I'm reading that right now. But it's kind of fascinating. So to read that, high tech CIA picking up a sub, and also to read, I think it's The Black Chamber. It's a book by whoever wrote James Bamford, I think, and it's about like the World War I domestic surveillance and it was telegram tapping,
Yeah, yeah,
and on the face they're so wildly different. You have guys in like top hats with like shiny shoes and Model Ts going around and they're reading. You go, yeah, that's nowhere even remotely in the same universe as picking a submarine up, and picking a submarine up is nowhere near in the same universe as Space Force and drones. But the more you dig into it, you really do start to see it's almost all identical in that it's just
yeah.
patterns. It's need to know, it's cover stories, it's guys who just truly just give it their all. They believe in the mission. You have people who are cynically building their own fiefdoms, maybe to go into private after. But the more you dig into, in my, completely unexperienced wisdom, you do start to see just how similar it all is and how so much of it comes down to even now, just like reading about like ego, like one guy, no matter what, it was like you are not to like drink coffee before he does. And it's like you're in some
Yeah.
special access program. It's like do not take a sip before he does. How is your experience? How does that jive with what I'm saying? Am I completely off
Well,
the mark?
yeah. Let me first ask you, that book you're
Yeah.
reading, was that about Glomar Explorer?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The Howard Hughes go down, pick up the project.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. So, the what was his name? Woody Johnson, who was the head of the Skunk Works at Lockheed Martin.
Ben Rich.
No, no, no. A guy named Johnson,
Oh, Clarence Kelly Johnson.
uh, Kelly Johnson. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when I entered on duty at CIA in September of '85, and he came and spoke to our class at the end of September
That's
of
so cool.
'85. So, I mean, he was well into his 70s then, but he was the inventor, or oversaw the creation of the U-2 spy plane
Yeah.
and the SR-71
Yeah.
Blackbird and Glomar Explorer.
That's so.
Um, the reality for the United States is we've got very, very limited experience with intelligence. Um, we did not have really a formal intelligence service until after World War II.
Hmm.
So the Office of Strategic Studies, the OSS, was set up, and it was modeled after the Brits Special Operations Executive, the
Hmm.
SOE. Now the Brits and the French, the Russians, the Germans, they had centuries of experience with intelligence operations. United States, not so much. In fact, that period in World War I that you're referencing, that was really, that was marked the creation of the FBI. And even prior to that, we didn't have a federal uh, law enforcement organization that was tasked with collecting and identifying threats. It was, very reactive. So we've we've developed an intelligence capability that's really very much dependent upon what other countries have done. And we've not been good at developing really a unique, particularly human intelligence capability. We did sort of lead the world with the electronic surveillance with the National Security Administration or agency. Uh, that scoops up everything as we learned from Ed Snowden's
Hmm.
revelations. And the Brits are sort of a close second. The Russians do a significant amount on that as well. But I really think we've been the leader in terms of electronic interception of information. So, uh, but the point you made that I think is the most important one is you can't take the human element out of this, no matter what the architecture of the system is, no matter how good the technology is. Uh, you're going to always get a human being with their own personal agenda to really fuck it up. You know, I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, I've seen it. Yeah, it's an example. But um, when my first year in CIA, I was in the career trainee program. And so at the end of that, I was going down to my office, the Middle America Caribbean Division. I was going to be the Honduran analyst. And so the first week, as I'm showing up, I noticed all these computers sitting out in the hallway. And they were made by Xerox. It was called the Golden Tiger. So this is 1986. So we're talking, 40 years ago now. Jesus. I am old. Uh,
Nonsense.
yeah. Um, and I said, so what happened? And they go, they told me the story. So this was when desktop computers were starting to replace typewriters. Up to that point, if you were an analyst, you'd be working off of what's called an IBM Selectric typewriter. It was electronic, but it could actually autocorrect with some white tape. We thought that was, boy, high speed, low drag.
That is cool, man. In terms of
Yeah,
analog, that's some cool machinery.
yeah, yeah. So turns out that a person that had bought all these golden tigers and had them installed in the office, when they first installed them, nobody thought through that what happens when we turn on all these computers at the same time. No, nobody calculated what the electrical load would be. So the
Yeah.
first day they put them up, it blew the circuit. But then after they tried to use these computers, they found that they didn't fit the needs of the analysts. So the guy that had purchased the computers got a $25,000 cash award for his innovation. Then they tasked somebody else to get rid of them and buy other computers that were more user friendly, and that guy got a 25,000 cash award. The point was, the first guy that bought the turkeys, he didn't get held accountable, didn't punished, nothing. He gets rewarded. So you get that sort of human factor where you reward screw ups. You don't hold anybody accountable for doing something wrong, and that's one of the problems with Washington.
Yeah, the reinforcement of structure for structure's sake.
Yeah,
Just he did the thing. He acquired the ammunition. It's like, well, was it good ammunition? Was it the doesn't matter. He did it. And I mean,
yeah,
yeah, in terms of there's I've read Skunkworks by Ben Rich, and it's mostly about Clarence Kelly Johnson. And when they were designing the U2 and the SR-71, I think it was Dick Bissell was like, we have to have like a single agency guy there. He's like, we're not trying to tell you how to do it, but if it's going to be funded by the state, like we get to be in there. And
Yeah,
after
yeah,
back and forth, he allowed him to come in, and even Clarence Kelly Johnson, who I mean, I think there's some compliment to him that they said means he's the best ever. Said he could see air. He was so good at aerodynamics, and that guy, the apex of professional, knew Eisenhower personally. He said that a CIA guy could be part of the team so long as he didn't have a chair at his desk, because only he got a chair at his. And you look at that, and it's just immediately you take this Leviathan figure, and it's just like a 4-year-old. Like, well, I don't want him to play with it, and you're like,
yeah.
Jesus, it really does. And we're saying about World War One. I think it was I forget the name of it, but I think it's NDIA, the National Defense Industrialization. It's because the National Defense Industrialization Act. It's because we didn't even have like a standardization for rifles, ammos, and uniforms. Like
Right.
we had gobbled up of like you guys are kind of in this like pea green thing, and you guys are. I mean, I would imagine it's some derivative of like Civil War uniforms, and we didn't even have that, and so. And then, Truman with the CIA, and he famously said, I feared that we're going to have a standing Gestapo. He said that before or after.
After and he wrote with regret.
Yeah,
In the 19, I think it was like 1962, 63.
I think he actually wrote an article like a
Yeah,
month after Kennedy was killed.
yeah, it was in the Independent. Yeah. So I grew up in Independence. I went to middle school across the street from Harry Truman's house,
Okay.
and saw Harry Truman walking the streets. So he's still alive and around when I
That's
was there.
so cool. That's so
Uh,
cool, dude. You met him and Clarence. That's so
so
legitimately cool.
it just means I'm old.
Who
So,
cares? Who cares?
yeah.
We're all going. Who cares?
But he wrote it in the Independence Examiner, and then it got a little bit of national coverage, and then they took it down. So um, I think he regretted setting it up, and candidly, I think at this point the agency ought to be dismantled. They ought to start over because it's become a rogue elephant. Its primary mission has become destabilizing other governments and lying. The lies it's putting out right now. Example, Cy Hirsch just wrote an article about Ukraine, and in it he said the Russian army that they've suffered 2 million killed in action. And I know Cy, and I told Cy, I said, Cy, that's bullshit. And let me explain to you, it's a math problem. So you can do the math with me. At the start of the war, in February of 2022, the Russian army had total 1 million men, 750,000, I think, were considered active duty. In August, they had a number of soldiers that had been under contract that left, I think, to the tune of 50 or 60,000. And they recognized the war was going into a new phase. So they did an immediate call up of 300,000 reservists. Okay, so let's go with a million. Let's not try to subtract any yet. That brings us up to 1.3 million total. Then they mobilized in November and December through conscription an additional 120,000. I mean 60,000 a month. So now we're up to 1.46 million total. Then the next year for 2023 and 2024, they recruited on average, so they had sign up bonuses and others, uh, between 30 and 40,000 a month. So let's take the lower figure, 30,000. Let's be very conservative. Well, that's 360,000 a year right there. And in fact, you find a lot of Western media sources that were poo-pooing, they're not recruiting that many. So 360,000 and 360,000 in 2024, that gives us 720,000. So we add that so what we're up to is about 2.2, 2.3 million total.
Total.
And yet the CIA is claiming that 2 million Russians have been killed. Well, that means they only got 300,000 guys left in their army. Except no, even the Ukrainians are saying, no, they got 750,000. And you're going, what the hell? Now, because if you do the two, if they killed 2 million, that's just a simple math problem as well. Go back to February 2022 through, let's say, end of June, since we don't have a full data for July yet. What's that, 41 months? Divide 2 million by 41, you come up to about roughly 48, 49,000 dead per month. Now, if they were actually losing that many, that means Russia, in order to grow its army from 1 million to the total of 2.3 million people, you're going to have to recruit on top of that number that you've lost, right? I'm not a math genius, but I can fucking add and subtract. And these morons are pushing out this nonsense, this lie. Oh, yeah, Russia suffered 2 million casualties. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. There are no numbers to back that up. It's simply they're making it up, fabricating it. And nobody has the balls to stand up and throw the penalty flag and say, wait a second, you're lying to us. That's our intelligence organization.
It's kind of a shame that Cy Hirsch did that because I don't know much, but I do recognize that he's pretty widely acclaimed as like, for whatever flaws he has. But
Well, it's
he's
not.
pretty rock solid
Yeah, I mean, look, Cy's an
over
old
the,
friend. I've known
yeah,
him for 40 years.
but even just professionally, he's got a pretty like rock solid track
Well,
record.
what he's doing though, he's accurately reporting what his sources are telling him.
Correct.
So he's not making the facts. He's not doing the analysis. He's a reporter.
Got it.
So it's like
So it comes back
I
the
come
this.
to Tommy Corrigan and you say, "Hey, the unicorn has blue balls." And I go,
All
"Okay,
right, those
unicorn."
the big old blue
And
testicles.
I write that out and I write that and publish it. Doesn't mean that I necessarily believe it,
Got it.
but I'm putting out what you told me.
Got it.
So that's sort of what Cy's doing in this case. But I tried to tell him, I said, "Man, they're playing you."
You almost wonder if it's some weird pivot to get back into the graces of because remember when he did the whole Nord Stream article, all of a sudden you had all these people saying he's a Russian asset. And it's like Cy Hirsch is like he has been a thorn in the side of every administration. Like he's
Yeah,
not a
yeah,
and it's you almost wonder if is he trying to go back and get into good graces or is he being discredited? But to go back to just like so let's even just forget 2 million 50 million Russians or it's 1,000 whatever just go back to let's just trickle it all back down to the core weapons of mass destruction Vietnam domino theory Korea just all the way back down to the creation and then how we didn't have one until Truman and then and you're saying France Germany they all Britain they all had these forever you almost wonder if at a certain point in a country you look at its growth and it's as it gets larger and as its economy builds and its population builds and not in our lifetimes where it's like the United States has been here forever. I mean, let's really zoom back to the time scale of countries where you go, yeah, empires rise and they fall. That's all of human history. I wonder if you get to a certain point of, for lack of a better phrase, maturation or a certain size of muscle throwing things around to where, much like I was saying beforehand, I don't even centrally plan stuff anymore. I just let it come to my sub.
yeah.
That's fine on a podcast where the repercussions are really next to nothing.
You'd
But
be
what
ideally suited for the CIA.
yeah, I'm feeling this today. But if you get to a certain size where all of a sudden you are the United States and you kind of came onto the scene World War One, but really World War Two, Lend-Lease, War Powers Act, and then we're buffered by oceans. We became such a juggernaut that I almost wonder if let's just regardless of judging it as good or bad. I wonder if you hit a point where it's so large and you have tentacles that are so pervasive that you do need some sort of additional layer, like the brain,
Yeah,
like reptiles don't have it, but you get up to human beings when we're doing all this stuff, you start to develop the prefrontal cortex. And maybe it's a necessary evil, maybe it's not necessary, but it's at a certain point, When you grow up, you get in a certain point where all of a sudden you're not the innocent baby anymore. All of a sudden, no, you did get caught drinking. You lied to mom. All of a sudden, it's like, yeah, no, you did, yeah, or you got, dumped, or you were an asshole, or you whatever. Your parents found you smoking pot. You're no longer innocent. And it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad because we all go through it. But I guess at a certain point in a country's size, is the development of an intelligence apparatus inevitable? And it can go one of several ways. And right now, it seems like it's going in the less than ideal way. But I wonder if it's almost unavoidable.
Well, what is it that you want from an intelligence organization? Let's start with that.
Well, right, originally it was, sorry to interrupt. Originally, it was just unbiased. You give it to the president. We're not going to do anything about it. We're not going to enforce anything. But Mr. President, this is for you. No bullshit.
Well, yeah, we want to know, one of the priorities I would think would we want to look at countries that are what I'd call potential adversaries and to know what they're really thinking, what they're really up to. Um, and actually, I thought that, and so the traditional way of having a clandestine agent uh, tell you what's really going on the inside, that's the ideal. But I think we'd actually be better off if we set up a system where, let's say, Russia and the United States agreed that they would select an intelligence officer who would then be able to sit in on the meetings, all the meetings that Putin had and all the meetings that Trump has, so that the other side would know exactly what the other country is up to. That way, we wouldn't have to believe certain things that were actually mistaken, because a lot of what drove our intelligence priorities in the 1950s and 1960s were lies based upon the perception of the Soviet Union as this threat for global communism. And,
ICBMs like sausages.
yeah, and there's the I'm looking for my book, the Verona documents, Verona papers. There was a book that came out in the 80s purporting to show that, oh man, here's all these intercepts out of Russian KGB files that shows the massive how they had this global conspiracy and it penetrated everything and were on to control the world. Well, the guy that provided these documents claims, he brought out this, thousands of documents supposedly, except he didn't bring the actual documents. What he did was while at work at KGB headquarters, he was transcribing all of the documents and then walking them out the building. I'm thinking, who's got that kind of job where you can sit and copy all these top secret documents and then take it out of the building and bury it, and then it comes up, and the guy who put the book together also didn't speak Russian. There's another one involved.
Oh,
So I'm going, gee, does this smack like a propaganda operation designed to paint a
yeah.
particular picture? We find, you know, we wonder why the Soviets were so, quote, paranoid at the end of World War II, why they just, quote, didn't trust us. Well, the first reason was we started providing safe haven to all these SS officers.
Mhm.
The Butcher of Lyon, Klaus Barbie was one, as an
Yeah.
example. Well, here are the Russians who just lost 27 million people.
They, yeah,
Yeah, they had lost. So basically, that worked out to about one in every 16, let's see, 16 out of 100 people in Russia died in that war. Whereas in the United States, fewer than one out of 100 died.
for everybody listening, the United States had 425,000 fatalities in World War II.
Yeah, and of that, about 130,000 were actually accidents, guys that died in hospitals from illness
Sure.
like malaria. They weren't, the actual combat casualties were 110,000 in the Pacific and like 179,000 in Europe and North Africa. Now, I'm not trying to minimize that,
Absolutely not. But just in relation, you're looking
but
at a
it's nothing.
50 or 60x difference.
Yeah, it's nothing. And in fact, I argue that's why we are so keen on getting involved with all these foreign wars, because We've
We
never
have
paid a price.
we haven't
I
been
mean,
punched in the face.
is there anybody in your family that's fought and died in a war, a U.S. war?
My grandmother's uncle died in World War I. My grandfather's brothers were in World War II. He couldn't go because asthma. My uncle was in Vietnam. And I think and there were Carrigans in the Civil War, but they survived.
Yeah, that's the Irish thing, man. They came over.
Get right off the boat.
If
Why
the
are you
Irish
here?
are, if the Irish aren't in a fight,
Yeah. I'm actually in Portland, which is where the Carrigans came, 200 years ago. Yeah, they came right out. They probably drunk and just gave him a rifle. They didn't even care if there was a war.
Portland, Maine.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I actually have an Irish ancestor, Charles Thompson. Uh, they came out of Londonderry and in 1739.
Well, I'm
And
Thomas Patrick Carrigan, and my brother is Charles. So yeah,
yeah, so yeah, no, I know the Irish thing.
yeah, yeah.
But the point
But
was,
the 27 million to
yeah,
the
so
290.
they lost 27 million. The Chinese lost 20 million. So between China and Russia or the Soviet Union, they incurred about 80% of the killed in action in World War II. Okay. So that's why they're a little reluctant to go get into a war. And yet at the end of World War II, the United States deliberately had shifted. And you can see the shift in the movie Patton with George C. Scott about, I got to go kill those red commie bastards. Um, we we deliberately provoked the Soviet Union. Because the way the story is told in the West is the Soviets were intent on conquering other territory, except they occupied Austria up until 1955, and then in exchange for a pledge of neutrality, the Soviets left Austria. No shots were fired. There wasn't, and the reason they had taken over Poland and Romania and Hungary and Czechoslovakia was they wanted a buffer zone because they had been attacked 3 times. They'd been attacked in World War II. They'd been attacked in World War I. They'd been attacked in 1812. Well, they'd been attacked in the Crimea War. So, multiple invasions from the West. So, yeah, they wanted to build up a buffer zone. But we turned that into this, oh man, these communists are intent on global domination. And we use that then to justify a dramatic expansion in the military industrial complex and to make spending on the CIA a priority. And as a result of that, starting under Eisenhower, the number of countries where we were intervening to overthrow and change governments it turned up dramatically, and it got worse under Kennedy, and it continued under Johnson, under Nixon. So, in 53, you get the overthrow of Mossadegh, the elected leader of Iran.
Hmm.
54, you get the overthrow of Jacobo Arbenz in Guatemala. So you roll through the years, and then the double game that is played with the CIA here. Uh, the classic example is Iran and Iraq. So, we're propagandized with, oh, Iran's the number one sponsor of terrorism in the
They are
world.
11 seconds away from a 100 gigaton warhead.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all, I mean, it's pure
And
bullshit.
they would have used it, man. They would have used it by now. Sorry, keep going.
So, so in 1979, the Iranian students run over the U.S. embassy, take a bunch of our people hostage, and take everybody get their hands on hostage, held them for more than a year. And during that time, uh, we're talking to Iraq. We helped put Saddam Hussein in power in Iraq. And basically, we convinced the Iraqis, you know what? It'd be a good idea to go attack Iran. Let's start a war, and we'll supply you with the chemicals so you can make chemical weapons, which we did. So, the hostages are released, and there's some evidence to show that Reagan they had private behind the scenes contacts with Iran in order to keep the Iranian hostage situation going.
Until his first day in off, or when was it when he won, or was it first day?
Yeah, that's the first day in all the day
Okay, yeah,
as he's being sworn in, then they release him. Yeah, okay, that's just a coincidence.
yeah,
Um, so here we're now we're super mad at Iran, right? We're really mad at them. God, they held our people hostage. And we're encouraging Iraq to start the war, the Iran-Iraq War, which starts in 1980, I believe.
Hey there! Are you tired of skyrocketing subscription costs? With Q Broadcast, you get an entertainment package that is unmatched by other providers, with all your favorite content in one affordable bundle. Enjoy a 15-day trial for just $14.99. And if you refer 3 friends and they stick around, your subscription is free. Say goodbye to high-priced subscriptions, contracts, and hassles, and say hello to streaming simplicity with Q Broadcast. This changes everything.
Heaven's Harvest Prepper Food, 72 servings per pail, 25 years shelf life. I've had the owner Clayton on the show before. He's a God-fearing, America-loving patriot. Get one of these, get a couple of them, throw them in your basement. It's good to have it, not need it, than to need it and not have it. If you don't want to do that, you can get their seeds. You can plant your own garden, so you don't even have to keep buying them. You can just get the goods and start your own, or you can even get freeze-dried fruits and vegetables like bananas, apples, strawberries, and raspberries. They support the show. It's an honest product. It's a good safety measure to have, and they keep my show free for you. So I'd implore you guys to please go to heavensharvest.com, use the link in the description, promo code TPC. Axios Fitness Coaching is a premium resource for holistic strength and conditioning services. Axios is best known for the Training Club, capital T, capital C, an exclusive community that prioritizes accountability, technique, diet, and nutrition. Everything you need to do to take action against the decay of the modern world. Whether you're looking to improve your physique, build strength, or just take care of your health and fitness, Axios will provide you with a solution that is effective and simple to execute. All you need to do is complete the intake survey, and you can see if you're a good candidate for the training club or any other of the services. And it's going to sponsor the show. So, one company falls off, another one arises. So if you guys like the show, you want to work out, throw the show a couple shekels. Go take the survey. Thank you so much, guys.
Higher ultraviolet exposure is associated with lower mortality. The United Kingdom is a high latitude and low sunlight country. Researchers there collected data on over 360,000 participants in a study of UV exposure via solarium use. When compared with non-users, solarium users had 15% risk lowered of all-cause mortality, 23% lower risk of cardiovascular mortality, 14% lower risk of cancer mortality, and a 12% lower risk of non-cardiovascular, non-cancer mortality. In other words, all other causes. Quoting the researchers, our study adds to the growing evidence that the benefits of UV exposure outweigh the risks in low sunlight environments. A link to the original publication is available in the box below the video. Get some UV light this winter. Immerse yourself in the tranquility of the blue. Visit a Blue Room soon. www.blueroom.com.
February 1981, CIA shows up at the White House to meet with Ronald Reagan with Mossad agents in tow. And Mossad is seeking permission to sell weapons to Iran. Okay? Now let's repeat that for the youngsters out there that weren't around at the time. We've just gotten our hostages back from the mad Ayatollah Khomeini. And now here comes Israel, who claims that, we're terrified of those Iranians. Here's Israel saying, hey, we need your permission to sell. We're going to sell your U.S. weapons that you give us. We're going to sell those to Iran. And in the meantime, also, we want to get some tires for the F-4 Phantom jet, because the tires that you sold the Iranians in the late 60s, early 70s, they're no good anymore, so we need to replace the tires. Ronald Reagan, okay. So from 1981 up until a little thing called the Iran-Contra scandal, the United States is selling or facilitating the sale of weapons via Israel to Iran. At the same time that we're supplying chemical weapons, or the precursors for the chemical weapons, to Iraq. What is our policy? We wanted them to fight and kill each other, kill as many of each other as you can,
Hmm.
because ultimately this is about, we see it as weakening the Soviet Union. That's our duplicity here. And, we fought this war on terrorism over the last 24 years. My God, we're against terrorism. Except compelling evidence that we provided funding and support, most recently to this guy Al Shara, who's now, that's his new name, formerly known as Mohammed Al Jalani, the head of Hayat Tahrir al Sham. Hayat Tahrir al Sham broke off from Al Nusra, and Al Nusra broke off from ISIS. So here we got ISIS, who's an actually legitimate Muslim extremist terrorist group, and we're supporting it.
Operation Sycamore Timber, I
Yeah,
think,
Sycamore Timber.
2014.
Yep,
Obama
yep.
and the running the, which was just a direct I mean, you see the playbook is the direct repeat of, um, that was it's a Cyclone. Was that where we gave Mujahideen weapons?
Yeah, yeah. I don't remember the code name
Yeah,
for it,
yeah.
but
I
but
always
I
get them mixed up.
but I
Cyclone, we
knew.
gave them all the stingers to fight the Soviets, and then they became Al Qaeda. And then what do you know? We funded, Sycamore Timber, and all of a sudden we have this guy which we funded, and then you start to go, huh? If I see two patterns, I wonder if one day America is going to be really against the terrorist cell formerly known as the Azov Battalion.
Yeah, yeah.
If I were to just throw a
Well,
guess.
and notice that in between our support for the Muslim extremists in Afghanistan in 1980s, that we followed that up in the late 1990s by supporting the Chechen War, the Second Chechen War in Russia, again to destabilize the Soviet Union. The Russians have actually they've been very, very, I'll call it orthodox. I don't want to, because they're Orthodox Christians, not Catholics, but they've been very orthodox about dealing. They don't they don't double deal with terrorists. They've got a strict policy. We're not going to fund or facilitate Islamic extremism in any way, shape, form, fashion, whatever, however you want to call it. They're very strict on that. We're not, man. We're morally flexible. We'll support terrorism. Then we claim that we're fighting terrorism. And then we use that war against terrorism in order to justify expanding the defense budget. Now we're going to $1 trillion. Oh, but now we're no longer fighting terrorism. We're fighting the Russians and the Chinese and the Iranians.
I mean, and it's like what you want to believe, not you, but me, and I think most like what we want to believe is that, you know, they take you in a skiff with the president and they go, "We know this is fucked, but if we don't do this, this is gonna happen." Almost like listen, we know Hiroshima was a bunch of civilians, but listen, we're gonna lose 1 million. We're gonna kill all of them, no matter what. We're not losing this, so let's get it over early. You want to believe they bring you in and go, if we didn't fund the Mujahideen, if we didn't fund ISIS, this and this and this would have happened. It sucks that this happened, but if we didn't, whatever, Chicago would have been nuked. And it's like you want to believe that. But the thing is they know you want to believe that. And
Yeah,
it's they
yeah,
can use that to, hey, what a surprise. What does it always come back to? Like the Dulles brothers or Biss. Well, you go back and it always E.H. Harriman, and it always turn oil depletion allowance, and you go, oh, it's money and the extraction of natural resources.
yeah. I just challenge people to do their own thinking.
Yeah, don't listen to a
Don't
word we're saying. Read the book. Read all of the books.
Yeah, don't take my word for it. But the classic example, I referenced it earlier, is this claim that Iran's the number one sponsor of terrorism. Okay, if that's true, then we should look at the annual State Department publication that's required to come out at the end of April every year. It's now called Country Reports on Terrorism. It used to be called Patterns of Global Terrorism, but it's put out by the office I used to work in. The data is collected by the National Counterterrorism Center. Uh, it was originally under something called the Terrorist Threat Integration Center. And then those data is put out. So go through and look. And they've now, at least over the last 10 years, have done a statistical annex where you can see who the top 10 terrorist groups are. Go look at those top 10. Not a single one until 2023 has any relationship to Iran whatsoever. They're all Sunni based, funded out of the Gulf states, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, etc. However, for 2023, you finally get three groups that are linked to Iran: the Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas. Well, the reason they get in there is simply because of the October 7th attack. That's it. If October 7th didn't happen, none of those groups would have been listed anywhere near the top 10 of terrorism. And that's actually been the reality for the last at least 25 years, going back to 2000 and before. The uh, and we've always here's sort of another lie. We've always presented Al Qaeda as if it's indistinguishable from ISIS, which it is quite distinguishable, because Al Qaeda ultimately was not so much driven by Islamic religion as much as, let's call it Arab nationalism, or an anti-imperialist, anti-US imperialist policy. That's what they're fighting, US imperialism. Uh, there's ways in which the Islamic side touched on that, but ISIS was a bona fide Salafist organization, and Zarqawi, the one who's initially set it up. Remember, there was a early on when he was carrying out all these terrorist attacks against Shia targets in Iraq, that Bin Laden and Zawahiri, his number two, they wrote him sort of a stern letter, basically saying, "What the hell are you doing? Stop this! Stop attacking other Muslims." So they took that high road. But anyway, it's all been a construct in order to, because we got to have an enemy. If we got that enemy out there, by God, we can tell you. But that's why we need to spend $1 trillion. That's why we're going to take a bunch of your money, Mr. Carrigan, and we're going to devote it to helping keep you safe. Trust us.
It's and then I guess to go even like further through the looking glass, and I try to do this sometimes, just completely detach myself, not in the way that like I'm detached from World War II, but I did remember meeting my great uncles who fought, so there's still some like you
Yeah.
saw Truman. I go like, no, it's really detached, not even 17. So let's the same way you look back at like the Persian Empire, where there's no emotion, not good or bad. You just look at it very coldly. It's just as what it is. When I do that, it does kind of seem like someone's gonna run the table. And if it's not us, it's someone else. And let me be very clear, that is not like an endorsement of it. It
Yeah.
just seems like peace is a noble idea. I just I don't see a world that someone isn't running it. I'd like for it to be a mutual thing, but it seems like there isn't a world where somebody isn't running the table. And again, that's not like, and so therefore America. No, man, a lot of bad stuff happens. I don't think anyone should do it. I think that someone will do it. And that seems to be the most, forget international law or conventions. That seems to be the primal, that genetic code that goes back to the dinosaurs. Is just like someone is going to be top dog, and it doesn't matter if you agree with it. And it's kind of it's kind of sad. It's like you almost want to, it's like if someone's gonna run the table, is the quote unquote best world for the most number of people just on raw numbers and percentages? Is it a monopolar or unipolar world? Is it a bipolar world, or is it a monopolar world? And I know I'm asking you the $100 quintillion
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
but like, is it
Well,
if you had to choose one of those three?
it is the United States is operating as if it is a unipolar world. Uh, I like the phrase nodal more than polar. Poles, poles basically a geometric
Yeah.
shape, one end, other end. Nodes are more,
Yeah.
dynamic, and what you're living through, and you're going to see as you extend your life and get old like me, is the emergence of a new multinodal world. Um, when you go back, again, the propaganda we're fed in the West about Russia and China is to portray them as these two uh, imperialist powers that are bent on conquering the world. Just read the history of China. Show me one country where they've gone out and invaded and conquered it and then subjected it and made it a colonial slave. Not one.
Mm.
And we're talking 3,000, 4,000 years. They fought inside their own boundaries, but they've stayed at home. They did have some ships that sailed around the world, but they let their whole navy fall into disrepair. Same with Russia. Russia's not been a rampaging international. Russia doesn't have 700 and plus military bases scattered around the world. Nor does China. That's us. That's the United States. Um, China and Russia, who's invaded Iraq twice in the last 30 years? That'd be us. Afghanistan, Syria, Libya, Somalia, Serbia, Panama. I mean, we keep keep racking up the hits. And yet, in this classic projection, we always blame these other countries. So what's taking place right now is
Sorry, I was just looking it up to make sure it is sycamore timber. Sorry, keep
yeah,
going.
no, that's
Sorry.
it was sycamore timber.
Yeah,
You're,
yeah,
you're correct. What's happening right now is that Russia and China, because of the sanctions that the United States imposed upon Russia at the start of the special military operation, again, something that we provoked. And Scott Horton got the book back here. He's written the book on that whole issue, laying out the actual evidence for how we provoked the Russians into this military action. Um, they've come to the realization that the West cannot be trusted and that their economic fortune should not be dependent upon the West. And so what you have right now, the BRICS prior to 2022 was like it's an idea, something we'd like to do, but they hadn't really put together concrete steps and infrastructure to make it real. They've done that now in the last 3 years. So here you have BRICS, which represents 55% of the world's population. And just in those 20 countries, 45% of the world's GDP is measured by purchasing power parity. So all of a sudden now it is a genuine competitor with the West, and they are developing their own way of payments where they're not dependent on the U.S. dollar. Because we saw it just yesterday with Trump. You do this, or I'm going to levy tariffs on you. Okay, go ahead. It's like he's threatening Russia with sanctions. In 2021, the United States had about a $30 billion trade deficit with Russia. That means we were buying more from Russia than we were selling to Russia. So we imposed sanctions, and the trade, it used to be like close to $75 billion a year. It just by 2024 collapsed only $3 billion in trade. And a lot of that is fertilizer, precious metals, uranium, but it's only $3 billion. And so, what happened to Russia? Did its economy collapse? No, actually, its economy grew.
Yeah.
It's now the fourth largest in the world in terms of purchasing power parity. And, so the United States has cut it off, and Russia finally came to the realization we don't need these guys. We thought we needed to have this relationship, this economic relationship with the United States. We wanted to be part. We don't need them. The United States was like that friend you have where he always makes you buy him dinner and then yells at you about the kind of clothes you're wearing, the kind of car you're driving. After a while, you go,
Why am I hanging out?
yeah.
At some point, he had some point
Yeah.
he offered something.
Yes.
Whatever.
Yes.
He had the fake IDs, and you guys go to but it's been years since that, and you're like,
Yeah.
why am I hanging out with you?
Yeah. Exactly right, man. That's it.
It's which I imagine is like if you just were to like zoom out and look at just these things kind of, I don't know, I would just get this imagery of like pool balls bouncing around, but it takes centuries instead of our lives, just watching nations rise and fall. And yeah, I mean, it's not a new thing that a nation gets insanely huge, reaches an apex, becomes overextended, and then domestically the quality of life descends and or uh completely gets saturated with debauchery.
Yeah.
and hedonism and not no no I get everybody had sex and drink. I get that. But it does
We're talking perversion on a grand scale
talking
here.
about you're talking about
Pedophilia.
guys in thongs with fake tits dancing in front of 4-year-olds and the parents cheering it on.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It and I don't and I should know more. I don't know enough about Rome. I really should, but I do believe there are a few examples of something rising, starting to fall, and then they kind of have that sobriety moment where they go, "I got to go to AA," and they extend their lives another couple hundred years. I think that's about the only route out is either complete dissension or you probably need some Trump or even crazier than Trump figure that's just like, we're pulling back. Like America's still going to be impenetrable, but we're fixing everything here. And I think we still could do that, but it does seem historically like there's two paths. It's
yeah.
you're done, you die. What is the great quote? Egypt was built with the rye. Egypt was built with the whip and rye soup. Rome died in the baths.
If you look at the transition, look at Russia today, then look at Russia 34 years ago
Yeah,
when the Soviet
yeah.
Union collapsed. Russia
It's done
descended.
good.
Russia descended though in the 1990s.
Oh yeah, just
To
yeah,
have called it a shithole would be be an insult to shitholes.
yeah,
It was they had two periods of hyperinflation in the 90s. The lifespan, a particular amount of men dropped from, say it had been 65 and the average death was now 57. Um, only 7% of the population was considered to be middle class. The vast majority were living in poverty. It was I mean, crime was rampant. The infrastructure was broken. I've been fortunate since December of 2023 to have traveled 5 times to Russia, 4 times to Moscow, once to St. Petersburg. Unbelievable. The cities are immaculate. The subway stations are like art museums. It looks like you walked into the Louvre in Paris. Um, Food is plentiful. And the real change is the country left its communist root, the communism ideology behind. There's still some communists in the country, sure, but it is a Christian, or they've returned to their Orthodox Christian roots.
mm,
And Christian orthodoxy, in contrast to Catholicism, has proved far more adept at integrating and living with, coexisting with people of other faiths.
sure.
And but what you've seen though is now 55% of the Russians are considered middle class, and that's just in that's in 26 years, from 1999 to now. So you've had a dramatic transformation of the society, but in the positive direction that you're talking about. And the only thing they're contending with now is the West is trying to destroy them. And one of the reasons the West wants to destroy them, I believe, is because of their Christian values. The Russians reject this globalist
Global
uh,
homo.
mentality.
Yeah, and it's you can't even blame them.
Oh
Like,
no, who wants to live? You got a number of, I've seen on YouTube, there's a Canadian family that came out, that moved, they have 8 kids. They moved to Russia 18, 19 months ago. There are Americans, there are Australians that have traditional values. They don't believe that there's such a thing as 70 different genders.
mm,
They believe that there's male and female. They believe in biology. Uh, it does help. I think one of the reasons the concept of transgenderism has become so prevalent in the West is so few people have any experience growing up on a farm. Because growing up on a farm,
there are There are gender assignments.
Yeah, yeah.
Nuclear
The,
family. Yeah.
the pigs are born and they don't ask, well, do you want to identify as a boar or as a hog? You
No,
know,
there
no,
is.
it's just Mother Nature can be, pretty rude and pretty crude, but you've never seen a transgender dog or a transgender chicken or I said that when you're in touch with biology and how animals reproduce and recognize that hell we're animals too, that this notion that you can pretend to be something that you're not, yeah, it's a psychological disorder, but don't confuse that with science.
I would say nature's not rude or crude. It's just what it is.
It is. Yeah.
They're not like, hey, we're gonna be real assholes. It just is, and it's almost like removing or losing the tethering of fiat currency to either gold or even just food and water, what some real thing. It's like as you lose that tether, it doesn't really matter what you do with the subsequent money because none of it's based on anything. It's all promises, right? I mean with the podcast, it's I've truly learned like words are cheap. Hey, dude, love your show. We're gonna sponsor it. That means nothing to me. I can copy and paste that a million times and send it out. What matters is the real thing. What matters is like, yes, you're here. We're doing the show. Here's the thing. Every other email, none of it's real until it's being recorded. And as you leave that tethering to reality, but in this case, not exclusively with money, but with biology.
Hmm.
If you if you're a kid and you learn the alphabet and but you learned the letters are incorrect and you actually made up a couple letters that aren't real, like a combination of Z and M or something, it doesn't matter that you got like 70% of it right because everything you do after learning to read, write, and then going to school and then learning courses, nothing will ever actually make sense. It's like if you change the weight of a proton by a trillionth of a gram, like the universe would just disappear. If we don't have that tethering to like, and this isn't to say like you can't be gay. This isn't some like, deep South Bible thumping, like none of that. And I lived in Georgia for 20 years. This isn't any of that. But to get to a point where it's, oh, he's pregnant, or man, she just demolished that Olympic sprint. And then to go one step further and to be like, and actually we're going to start mutilating kids. It is, aside from being morally and ethically repugnant and wrong, regardless of that, let's just completely remove ourselves and pretend we're looking at this as aliens with no emotion and we're just examining it.
Right, right.
I would look at it, if we're just looking at this petri dish that's Earth, like the same way I took microbiology lab, like hungover and not caring. The same way you look at that, just go, that one's not reproducing. And when they start to reproduce, they do some weird thing where they start mutilating the offspring. You go, that one's fucked. You don't even care about are they good? Do they have a good constitution? What's their domestic industrial base? You go, that petri dish is toss it. That one's growing a lot. That one's growing a lot, a lot. At the most base level, the continuing on of subsequent generations.
Yeah,
If we can't do that because we're actively aborting or mutilating, I mean, it's well, I think we're coming up on ours, so we'll wrap it up with this is in what's his face? Dan Carlin's Hardcore History series is one about World War One, which is it's 6 parts, 4 hours each. Better than any audiobook I've ever read. I highly recommend it to everybody. But he goes in and they're talking about just how brutal the trench warfare was and how every inch was paid for. If you've calculated it really was like a body per half inch or something. And they're talking about all of that. And then you start talking about all these soldiers and like their journals and stuff. And they talk about their first kiss under a bridge or, going out in the canoe with their dad, or they remember the candles and sitting on grandpa's lap during Christmas and the pride in their chest when they heard their national anthem. And he's listing all these things about all these kind of idyllic, European towns in the 1800s and early 1900s and said the only reason this level of massacre is even possible is because these men had something in their heart and mind that they were fighting for, regardless of the wars. That's something
right.
they had something behind them. And then World War II happens again. At a certain point, are you looking around at this and seeing people applauding child abuse and then demonizing you for pointing it out? how many guys my age, 34-year-old white dudes in decent shape, very excellent cannon fodder, how many of them are going, I'm not fighting for that shit.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would actually rather fight against that.
Yeah.
You can't have something if it's not worth fighting for, no one's gonna fight for it. And at that most basic level, it's like Russia has like clean. I've seen the pictures of the subways. They're beautiful. You go, and they don't allow the whole
And compare that to New York City
elementary.
subways.
And then you look at like elementary drag shows, and you go, maybe at one point they were an evil empire. I don't see that right now.
Yeah.
And this is
Yeah.
not to demean. I love the United States. It's to criticizing the United States doesn't mean you dislike the United States. I would actually say it's the opposite. But yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents on that. And but we'll wrap this up. We've been running for an hour. I know I interrupted you several times, and I normally don't do that. I don't think I do. I do that when I get really excited. And so
It's your show. You get to do
okay, but still, you
that.
Clarence Kelly Johnson, Truman. I just started to get psyched, and I always like when somebody can drop the SR-71 or something. Um, but your website, I believe, is Sonar21, SONAR, the numbers 2 and 1.com. That link is in the description. Every other link you've sent me is in the description. If you want more, just email
No,
me.
that's
Want
fine.
a copy of
If
it?
they go to sonar21.com,
Got everything.
that's the portal for entry to the
Beautiful.
rest.
That's the gateway drug to Larry
Gateway
Johnson.
drug, exactly.
That's the first doobie, and then you step into the Hall of Mirrors. Um, but dude, I always appreciate talking to you. I enjoy your insight, and hey, don't be a stranger. I feel like I should have you on more. That was
All
fun.
right. If I got the time, I'm happy to appear.
All
Enjoy
right.
doing it. Enjoy the chat.
Yes, sir.
The hour flew by, didn't it?
It did. I did. And that's how I know it's good is when I glance at the clock and go, oh, fuck. Like versus it's dragging by on every 3 seconds. I'm like, is the minute moving? So yeah, that's so interrupted you and I ran over. Those are my best compliments. So we'll wrap it up. I will send you this episode. It will probably be up tomorrow. I'll have all your links in the description and I look forward to having you on again sometime, man.
Cool. Thanks, Thomas.